I never thought I would find myself in such a situation. I, a 32-year-old man named Jason, am married to a woman I once considered the love of my life, Hannah. We have been together for 5 years, married for 3. She was intelligent, beautiful, and very confident. All my friends said she was a bit manipulative, but I was head over heels in love and dismissed any doubts. I have an older sister, Sarah. We grew up together, but after our parents divorced, she was adopted by another family. She moved to another state, and for many years we lost touch. But when I found out she had returned to town, I was thrilled. We started reconnecting, though Hannah always acted strangely whenever I talked about Sarah. She would become tense, change the subject, or simply say that she didn't like my sister. It was odd, but I didn't pay much attention to it. Now I wish I had listened to my intuition. It all started with little things. Hannah became very irritated whenever I invited Sarah over. She always found excuses to leave or occupy herself with something else. But the most suspicious part was that Sarah also seemed uncomfortable around Hannah. She looked uneasy whenever they crossed paths. I couldn't understand why there was so much tension between them. Then there were other moments. I noticed that Hannah received strange messages and deleted them immediately. She became more interested in when I was meeting with Sarah and what we talked about. Once I even overheard her mutter through clenched teeth, "We need to talk about him," as she left the room with her phone. But the worst part happened when I accidentally found a box of letters in her closet. These letters mentioned my family, my childhood, and things that Hannah knew even before we met. My chest tightened. This was not normal. I started digging deeper. A few days later, I checked her laptop. Some browser tabs were still open, showing searches for people. I saw that she had been looking up information about my family long before we met. Then, I came across emails between her and another woman. They were discussing things like he can't find out, and I knew this was risky. When I saw my sister's name in one of those emails, I felt a wave of dread. I couldn't believe it until I overheard their argument in our bedroom. I had come home early from work and heard Hannah talking to someone. It was Sarah. They were arguing. I heard phrases like, "You can't tell him," and "I never wanted this to happen." My heart pounded. I stepped into the room and both of them instantly fell silent. I demanded an explanation. Sarah burst into tears and ran out while Hannah froze like a ghost. She started coming up with absurd excuses, but I already knew. Something was very wrong. I locked the door and slowly, coldly asked, "What the hell is going on here?" Hannah nervously tucked her hair behind her ear, but her hands were trembling. She sighed and started mumbling, "Jason, you're misunderstanding everything. It's not what you think." "Really?" I crossed my arms. "Then explain." She glanced at the door as if she was planning to escape, but I wasn't backing down. 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind. Why were she and Sarah acting this way? Why were they arguing? We we were just talking about the past. Silly fights between women, you know. "You're lying, Hannah," I exploded. She flinched. Then her face twisted into a malicious grimace. I had never seen her like this before. She clenched her fists and screamed, "Fine! Yes, I knew who you were from the very beginning. I knew you were Sarah's brother. I knew it even before we started dating." My lungs felt like they had been crushed by a blow. "Then why did you marry me?" I barely recognized my own voice. "Because you were perfect." She laughed nervously again. "The man of my dreams. I wanted you, and I did everything to make you fall in love with me." I felt a rage building inside me. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a calculated, cold-blooded manipulation that had lasted for years. "How could you do this to me?" I whispered, unable to believe what I had just heard. She stepped closer, trying to touch my face, but I pulled away. "Jason, please. This doesn't change anything between us." "It changes everything." I could no longer hold back. "We're done, Hannah. Pack your things and get out of my life." She stared at me, her lips trembling. Then, without another word, she spun around, grabbed her things, and stormed out of the apartment, slamming the door behind her. I stood in the middle of the room, feeling like my whole life had just fallen apart. I cannot describe what I felt the moment the door closed behind Hannah. It wasn't just disappointment or anger. It was something more. It felt like I had been torn apart from the inside, leaving only a hollow shell of the person I once was. I stood in the middle of the room, staring into emptiness while an abyss of nothingness swallowed. First came denial. I tried to convince myself that this was some kind of horrible joke, that there was an explanation I just hadn't heard yet. But the voice in my head screamed, "She betrayed you. She played you from the very beginning." It wasn't just the realization of betrayal, it was the collapse of everything I had believed in. Next came anger. It consumed me like a wildfire. I smashed a few glasses, threw a book against the wall, nearly broke a chair. How could she? How could she lie to me so easily, look me in the eyes, and pretend she loved me? Every moment I once thought was happy now felt tainted, distorted by her manipulations. Then came apathy. I stopped eating. Food tasted bland, meaningless. I didn't want to leave the house, didn't want to talk to anyone. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying all our moments together, trying to pinpoint exactly where the lies had begun. Maybe they had never ended? Sleepless nights became my new reality. I woke up in the middle of the night, drenched in cold sweat, gasping for air. I had dreams where she smiled at me, held me, whispered that she loved me. And then her face would change, turning cold, indifferent, and she would vanish into the darkness. The worst part? Trust, or rather the lack of it. How could I ever trust anyone again? If the person I loved the most could betray me so coldly, then who else might? I was terrified that I would never be able to build a normal relationship again, that this fear and distrust would stay with me forever. Sarah suffered too. She felt guilty, even though she had no reason to. She tried to be there for me, to support me, but I could see how much it hurt her. She had lost not just her connection with me, but also the illusion that the world was fair. She couldn't believe that the woman I once called the love of my life had so cruelly played with the lives of others. There were moments when I thought, what if this was my fault? What if I missed something important? But the more I analyzed the situation, the more I realized this was her game, her choice, her lies. I was not to blame. I came to understand that the life I had built with her was nothing more than a beautiful illusion. And while the pain didn't disappear overnight, I knew I couldn't stay in this state forever. I filed for divorce the next day. Hannah tried to stop me. She cried, begged, tried to seduce me. But it was all pointless. She had shattered me so completely that nothing else mattered. I told her she could pack her things and disappear. Otherwise, I would make sure the whole world knew what she had done. Sarah supported me. She moved closer to be there for me. We tried to heal together. It was hard, but at least I knew she had never betrayed me. I'm still trying to process everything. I never thought I would find myself in this situation. I never thought someone I loved could lie, manipulate, and build a life on deception so skillfully. My advice to anyone reading this: don't ignore red flags. If something feels suspicious, it probably is. People who lie about small things are capable of lying about anything. And most importantly, never trust those who say everything is fine when you can feel that it isn't. What do I do next? How do I move forward after all of this?